I get that a lot. People ask me, what are your hours? And my hours are 24/7. The good thing about my job is because I'm self-employed and commissioned, I either work all the time or I don't have to work at all. So it's one of those deals. I work really hard a lot of times, and I just always am on call. So anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about the loan process, a little bit how Al talked about it. You know, I get a lot of questions like, how does this happen? And so I kind of say every loan process is the same. It's the individual that makes every loan unique. So the circumstances are always unique for every different loan. So a lot of times people call me up, I should say that, they email me and say, hey, I need to get pre-approved. And I'm like, great, I need to have a conversation with you. I can't do this via email. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to actually talk to somebody. So a great referral for me, when you give them my name and number, I'd love to have them call me so I can actually talk to them, because I really need to know what they're thinking. It's hard to, do that by email. Things get lost in translation, right? And once I get an application from these people, the first thing I want to do is check their credit, because credit scores vary anywhere from 400 to 800. We've all heard that. There's 3 different bureaus, and the algorithms are crazy. And so a lot of times when I'll ask somebody, I say, how's your credit? And I'll hear, well, I'm not very sure. And I'll pull their bureau, and they've got great credit. Or vice versa. They go, it's pretty darn good, and it's really not very good. So I want to look at it and go, if they're great, I can say, hey, you're fantastic. Don't change, stay just the way you are. If they're not in great shape, then I can give them some tips to help improve that credit. And some of these things can happen in a week. Some of them take 6 months. Some of them take a year, but at least I can give them a game plan. And then income. My gosh, how many people get paid differently? There's hourly, salary, commission, self-employed, bonus, tips, full-time, part-time, 1 job, 2 jobs, you name it. I've seen it all, and we all look at them differently. And a lot of times what we have to do is we have to average this out and try and figure out what's going to be a consistent income number. And a lot of times somebody will say, well, I make about $5 grand a month, and I'll get their income documentation. It's really $4 grand a month, or it's $6 grand a month. You'll be surprised how many people don't really know what they make, which is very, very common. So it's one of those things we want to actually look at it. Assets, that's the down payment money, how much money you have in the bank. Again, a lot of people don't really know what they have. They kind of know. One of the things that we see a lot of times, we have to get bank statements, and we'll get a bank statement in, and there's a $15,000 unexplained deposit. That's a no-no in our business, because we don't know where that money came from. We don't know if it was terrorist money, drug money, different potential sources, things like that. 99.9% of the time, it's gift money, which is completely fine, but we have to document it. So we want to make sure that we are doing this correctly so it's not an issue for the underwriter. Once we have all those things in place, now we're going to figure out a strategy. What's going to make the most sense for your unique situation? Because yours is different than his, and his is different than hers. It's all different for everybody, and that's for both refinancing and purchases. So a lot of times what we look at is going, what's going to make the most financial sense based on either how long you're going to stay in that house or potentially move out of that house. Once we do all that, you're going to be pre-approved. And once you're pre-approved, Jared will say, hey, we need a pre-approval letter. And they want to make sure it's solid, because this is a big deal. They don't want to go making offers on a house if it's a little bit willy-nilly. And a lot of times, Jared is fantastic about it. He makes his clients go and get a pre-approval letter. But all of agents call me up and say, Al, I need a pre-approval letter. We're making an offer on a house tonight. And I'm like, for who? I mean, talk to these people. And that puts me in a tough situation, because I don't want to do that without knowing I've got all those pieces in place. That's why I talk a lot about getting pre-approved as soon as possible. So real life in the real world, some circumstances. Here's some people I have going right now. I have somebody that I helped buy a house about a year ago, and we're going to do what's called a low-cost refinance. Basically, we're taking them from a 30-year down to a 20-year. Their payment is almost the same. It's not even because the rate difference is so big. The payment hardly going up. This was referred by a financial planner that he just called me up one day and said, let's run some numbers. We looked at it and go, my gosh, for like 20 bucks more, they can drop down to a 20-year. So it was a fantastic situation for these folks. A no-cost refinance